One's ready. Go!
Hey everybody, welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. You're in the team room. Listen, we've got a solid guest coming up. You guys are really going to enjoy it. James Sisco, looking to be, I mean, the guy talking to him, great story. Prior Recon Marine, was in Desert Storm. The dude has his hands in literally everything. It's crazy. Afghanistan, Iraq, intelligence community. What am I missing? He's an author, New York Times bestselling author.
Yeah, Department of State stuff, all the things.
Jeez, man.
Don't hold state against him though. He's not one of those State Department guys. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely not. But we had a great conversation. We really enjoyed having him on, and I think we're going to end up having him on for a part 2 to really do a deep dive in Afghanistan here in the future. But before we hop into that, would love for you guys to go to 18 Alpha Fitness. That is 18afitness.com. Use the promo code #1 ready to get yourself a tailor-made program for you based off of your current fitness level, where you need your fitness level to be, and how much time you actually have to get there. Coach Edgerton is a prior Green Beret officer, and the guy has got all kinds of knowledge, and he was involved in Air Force Special Warfare's strength and conditioning throughout the pipeline and everything like that. And I know that you worked with him when you were out there, right?
That's what we still talk to him. Coach Edge is like my 18 Alpha. You know, if you're looking for someone to lead you to where you need to be physically, you know, and it's a holistic thing. Like he'll make sure you stretch. He'll make sure you do all the things the correct way. He'll make sure that you're balanced out the right way so that you can be as resilient as possible to get through these events that he's intimately familiar with, the things that you need to be able to do no matter the pipeline. So he was enlisted first as an 18 series, and then he became an Alpha later on. So he's seen it all. He's done it all. He still does it all, even at even at your advanced age. He's still doing it all. Yeah. But he could still rip my arms off and beat me to death with them. So he practices what he preaches, and he knows what he's talking about. I promise.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are interested in getting some tutelage, some training from, I don't even know if I use that word right, but some training from Coach Edgerton.
We're so good at this.
I know, I'm great. Zero show prep and zero ad read capability. 18afitness.com, promo code #1 and ready to get yourself a discount. And then just one last shout out, 21 and 22 June is the Operator Training Summit in La Jolla, just outside of San Diego. We do have a few slots remaining, but they are closing up. If you are interested in that, either leave a comment on this video or shoot me an email at jared@onesready.com, and we'll get you added to the chat so you can secure your spot for that event. 12 hours in the pool in one day.
And Aaron will take his shirt off. I promise.
Silverback.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, everybody's excited about that. All right, everybody, enjoy this episode.
Later.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. You're in the team room. It's Trent and I, and then we also have James Sisco. Appreciate you joining us, James.
Hey, great to be here.
Yeah, man. So you're not as we were talking before, you are no stranger to podcasts at all. You have been making the circuit, apparently. So, like, before we hop into the kind of your background and everything we're going to talk about, where are some of those other podcasts that you've been on, so that people can find you as well to have a kind of 3D conversation piece about you,
so that they can know how bad we are at hosting podcasts as opposed to professionals that you've been with previously.
Well, that's why I'm here. I'm here to elevate your guys' game. So hopefully I can do that for you. You know, I have my own podcast channel on YouTube. It's called The War Journal, and that is I wrote a book called The War Journal: A Young Marine's Discovery of Critical Life Lessons from Desert Storm. And what I tried to do was, a lot of people don't like reading these days, and I don't. And so what I did is I would read an excerpt from the book every day, or every podcast, and then I would talk about that. And so I did that. I was on the Team House. I've been on a couple podcasts for Marianne Petrie and some podcasts dealing with parental alienation, and so that's it. Not too many, a handful, but I don't want to put out to your competitors, so
That's okay.
distract from your viewing audience.
No, there's no
No,
such
no,
thing as
we're
competition.
yeah, competition's good, and also at the same time, a rising tide raises all ships. So that's what we've always been about that. So we're good. So you,
I think I find that a lot in our community too. Everybody's trying to help each other out. Aaron was gracious enough to put me on your podcast, based upon the podcast I've done with other people. So I truly believe you guys have that in your heart.
no, I appreciate it. That means we're deceiving a lot of people. It's good. It's good.
Good psyops play there. I
That's
like
right.
it. I
'Cause
like
we're
it.
really we're really tearing them down on the backside of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't worry, leave that to me. Ask me questions about some of the podcasts. I'll tell you,
Hey,
I'll be like, no, they suck.
real leading questions. Um, so speaking of leading questions, you brought it up, the War Journal. It's one of your best-selling books, or it is a New York Times bestseller. Hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn on that, because I don't want to prop you up and then get that wrong. But tell us what your book's about.
Okay, well, I deployed to Desert Storm as a young corporal in the Marine Corps. I was 21 years old, and funny story, I was dating a girl, and we broke up before I went to Desert Storm, and she sent me a care package. Back then everybody got care packages, and in the care package was like the typical stuff, food and junk, and there was a binder book, and it was blank, and a pen. And she said, I want you to write about your experiences in Desert Storm, so when you get back, I can see them through your eyes. And so that's what I did. I wrote a journal in Desert Storm, every day, every couple days, during specific events or activities. And then when I came back from Desert Storm, didn't share it with anybody for about 30 years, 20 something years. And went through a very traumatic life event, and pulled the War Journal off the bookshelf one night and read it, and honestly was overcome by emotions. And
Mm.
because I relived a lot of my life through that experience. And then I did a podcast, and I talked to the podcast host about it, and she was like, oh, that sounds amazing, can you send it to me? And I transcribed everything from the actual journal itself, and sent it to her, and she was like, I got to get this to my publicist. This is a bestseller. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, as we were talking earlier, I wrote it in crayon, and anyway, the publicist called me up about an hour later, and she goes, you have a #1 best-selling book here. You don't even know it. And I'm like, I'm not an author. I don't know. And over about a month and a half, we wrote the book together. And the cool thing was, like, it was reliving it again, and then putting pictures from Desert Storm, calling my buds, hey, do you have any pictures, and talking to them about it, because I didn't mind writing the book, and I didn't care really what other people thought reading the book, but it was really the people I deployed with, they're reading this book, and they're like, fucking, hoser, whatever. And so that was like my main thing, and the feedback I got from them was awesome. So I was happy that the book, was fortunate enough to be a bestseller, but I feel like it's come up short. And the reason why is the book isn't about me. It's not, there I was killing bad guys. I mean, Desert Storm, we only had 96 hours, 100 hours of war. But it really is about these life lessons, and these critical life lessons that I learned but never applied in my life because I was too immature and too young. And then, 30 years later, I was like, wow, I really wish I had read the War Journal throughout my life. And that's why I promote it. It's not, to make money or be famous. I don't want to be the next Jocko Willett sending energy drinks and talking about how cool I was, because I am definitely cooler than him. But
Yeah.
it's about helping people, like young men these days, people who are on active duty. If they read the book, they can learn lessons that will help them throughout their lives, and will help them from, or prevent them from making the same mistakes I made. And that's why I'm passionate about it. And I really just hope that people are able to read it. And before we go on, I'm just going to tell you one story that's really powerful. I was going through a really just shitty period, dark period of my life, and that's when I wrote the book. And I was at home one night, and I had just done the podcast, and I got a phone call, and you know how like at night you see the phone ring, and you're like, whatever, and you don't know the number, and you're like, it's like Russian roulette, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
should I swipe or not? And I was like a Texas number. I'm like, yeah, whatever. So I swiped. I'm like, good evening, Jim Sisco, and there was a guy on the other end of the phone. He's like, hey Jim, I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from the podcast, and I wanted to talk to you. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. What's going on? He's like, hey, I was in the Marines. I was in Iraq. I was in Fallujah. I did a couple tours, and I'm like, oh, cool, man. I was in Iraq. We were just shooting the shit, and it kind of the conversation just started shifting, and I could tell. And he goes, I just really want to thank you. And I'm like, for what? And he goes, I read the war journal. I'm like, oh, cool. I mean, appreciate you getting that and everything. He's like, no, I really want to thank you. And I'm like, okay, and he's like, I was in a dark period of my life and I was thinking about, committing suicide. And after I read the war journal, I saw what you went through and I saw how you were so resilient. And I know that if you can do what you did, I can get through what I'm going through. And that was kind of I mean, my life is good. I saved somebody's life, and I just want to do that for more people. And I was fortunate enough to I went to Wounded Warrior Project, and some of their counselors and therapists are using the book to help them understand how to interact with veterans who are suffering from PTSD and other trauma. And so that's it, man.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome, and to have that kind of feedback from something that you helped create and something you also lived too is pretty awesome. So that's got to be a good feeling. And then I mean, good on you too because when you were doing that, when you were a young man going through all that, I, it's not like you expected to do this, right? You're just journaling, and in a way, like I still have some of I don't have many like journal entries, but what I have is some of my old targeting and objective paperwork. So like I have that stashed away, and I almost shredded all that, but I'm really glad that I kept it because whenever I do happen to go cleaning out stuff and then I see it, it helps me remember. But the fact that you're able to do that and then remember so many of the names and details, because I've forgotten more than I remember at this point. Like and that was before, social media and smartphones and all that kind of stuff where you could just easily link up with people. Now it's like I from the ODAs that I was with, sometimes I don't even remember what their ODA number was, and it's unfortunate. I wish I had done better on it, but like good on you for
Well,
doing
you
all
remember
that.
it was Brian, Scott, Jim.
Yeah.
Like there was like a bunch of Nicks. Who
Yeah.
knows? And no one uses their last name, so it's all just like I have no
I
idea.
don't know. Big redheaded dude. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was a Bravo. I don't know.
Had a lot of tattoos. Yeah, sleeve on the left side. Yeah, that guy. Oh yeah, I remember
Yeah,
him.
he'd always get his beer from downtown,
Yeah.
just from the market. But
Yep.
no, that's great. And like, can you tell us like one kind of snippet of the book and the story that really resonates with you, or maybe even it doesn't even have to be like a dark one or a wild story. Like I'm kind of partial to funny stories actually.
I have two stories. One's a funny one, and then one's a dark one. So
Okay.
let me tell you the funny one first. So I don't know people if they remember Desert Storm, but there was this big threat of chemical, biological weapons, and we had MOP level 1, 2, 3, 4, and Marines are their assholes are puckered tight on everything, and leadership makes
Yes,
like and leadership is like always like rah, rah. And recon, we were special forces, but we were really special ed. We weren't really that special, but we wanted to brand ourselves as being in recon and force recon, and this is before MARSOC and JSOC and SOCOM. But anyway, so we are a little special, and we try to bend the rules, and we're trying not to be like the rigid Marines. And so it was the morning of the breach, And this is when, you know, we were going in, 2nd Marine Division's going across the border, and there's just thousands of like troops and APCs and tanks and Humvees just lined up in columns and rows, you know, in good Marine Corps fashion. And we're driving up, and I literally have a cravat bandana on my head. I have my
Oh.
Oakleys sunglasses on. I have my boots and my desert camis, and no flat jacket, no helmet, no mop level. We have a American flag, you know, rigger tape to the whip antenna, and we're playing Guns N' Roses "Welcome to the Jungle" as we're driving by everybody. And the funniest part is like all these Marines are just watching us go by and just start screaming like "Hoorah!" You know, because they're all like hating life in mop level 4, you know, mop
Oh.
level 3, and you know, so that was the probably like one of the funniest things that I remember. You know, being behind the 50 cal with the cravat on, and you know, Oakley sunglasses, thinking I'm some badass dude. You know, and but anyway, and then so I'll tell you this story, and you know, it's not like giving away anything in the book, but so it was 2 days, 3 days before the breach, and we had sent teams out to do reconnaissance of the area where we were going to go through. And I didn't go out on patrol. Long story. I was back, but you know when you're like an operator and you're back in the rear and you got your buds out, you're like just chomping at the bit. You want to do anything, and you're like you're on the radio and you're trying to, you know, you're just like, why am I not out there? You know, and anyway, so
You're like, do you require assistance? You're like super troopers, like,
yeah, I'm like ready to run, and I'll go out there. I'll be right there, guys. Hold on.
yeah.
And one of the teams got compromised, and I was able to help with the extract. But I was sitting, it was everything. Everybody's back, and we're getting ready to go through debrief. But we're sitting in a circle, and you know, everybody's like eating chow and looking at mail, and you know, we're like shooting the shit. And in typical Marine fashion, I'm sitting like with 5 dudes and sitting next to my buddy Mike Cook. And I'll never forget this guy, Lance Corporal Stroud, was like, "Hey, Corporal Sisco, can you help me with the KY gear? You know, the KY 57
Yep.
gear on the ANC, you know, 77, ANP or C77." And, you know, typical Marine, you know, fuck you, were you a retard? Do it yourself. And, you know, Mike looks at me. And well, everybody starts laughing, and then Mike looks at me like a little sarcastic way, and he goes, "Bad dog, bad dog."
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, I did that. I started laughing. I'm like, yeah, it was kind of a dick move. So I get up and I go over and I start helping Stroud. I was only over there about a minute, maybe 45 seconds to a minute, and I'm helping Stroud with the KY cable and you know with the gear. I hear this boom, big explosion. I'm like, what the fuck was that? And it came from where I was just at. So I just go running over to you know where the sound came from, where I was just at, and I got there, and you know 4 of the buds were just like screaming. They got shrapnel. You know, they're laying on the ground, and Mike was just laying there, just like kind of like this. You know, he was like laying up against his house pack. He kind of had his head up and saw him for a second. His head went down, and both arms were gone, and his legs were in there. And I don't like Hollywood because they portray things really wrong. And
Yep.
if you've ever seen a hand grenade go off, it's so much heat. There's no blood and guts, and you know it's really bad. Anyway, what happened was I think he was taking his 782 gear off, and we had the hand grenades on our clips, and you know I think we would always you know, kind of take the thumb clips off and straighten out the pins so it'd be easier anyway. So what happened was we believe that, you know, he was taking off his 72 gear, hand grenade fell between his legs, he tried to get it, blew up. So I was standing there just kind of in shock and like, holy shit. And the corpsman knocked me out of the way and they started, you know, put him in trach and they started working on him and they extracted him with all the other guys, but he was dead. And so for me, that, you know, it was like, holy shit, you know, that was fucked up. And when someone dies, in combat, there's certain protocols that happen, and one of them is you have to separate all their military gear from their civilian gear, and then you have to log everything and do all this stuff. And so I was friends with Mike, and I saw him, and I'm like, I'll do it. So it was me and the staff sergeant, but the staff sergeant wasn't really doing shit, typical staff sergeant. And I'm going through all the gear, and it's like pretty bad because some of it is like pieces of flesh and bone, and and I'm like wiping it off. And anyway, I'm almost done, and I got down to the bottom of his rucksack, and there's his wallet, and I pull the wallet out, and I'm like, one driver's license, Pennsylvania, one credit card, and I go into one of the inside, kind of pockets, and I pull out a picture, and I look at the picture, and it was my girlfriend, and I turned it over, and on the back it said, "Love, Ashley." So here I am. My friend just dies, gets killed. I'm like, so that's kind of a traumatic. Well, everything's a trauma in today's world, but that was kind of a traumatic experience for me. I'm like, holy shit. And then I have that happen, and I literally had experienced like this emotions that I never had ever experienced in my life, between rage and betrayal and guilt and all of these things. And I literally, I felt something I had never felt in my life. Kind of just took a knee for a second. Didn't know what to do. Staff sergeant's like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, just give me a minute." Being a Marine, yeah, just give me a minute. I'm cool. And I walked outside. Walked away. Went in the desert by myself for a couple minutes. Just tried to think what happened.
Yeah.
And process everything. And I was like, "Well, fuck it, man. Got a mission to do, and just let me go finish this." And that was. I don't know if anybody can ever understand it or identify with it, but I think that event shaped my identity so much that I didn't realize it, because after that day, like I said, 2 days later, I'm on the 50 cal with the cravat, and woohoo, and I just forgot about it. I just put that one away for 30 years from now. And, but I know that it had an impact on me in my relationships, in my marriage, in, the way I interact with people. And but I know that now, and that's why the book is so important, because these critical life lessons that I learned through visceral events will help other people if they resonate with them. So that's kind of that's the dark tale.
Well, I think one of the things that people can definitely relate to is the moving on to the mission, right? The other thing, I can't even imagine the trust problems that I would have for the rest of my life if that had happened to me. I mean, I'm already whatever. But like the something happens and you find something. There's always something to distract you from it to move forward, right? There's always a mission to get after, and I think that's so many folks. Like I have like a 5-year turnaround on events until I have to deal with them, right? Like I figured this out over a long period of time, but man, like no wonder you didn't want to open up that journal and read it again. Like why would you want to go back to that moment where that seems like the most confusing, like, because you're already dealing with, you were just there, you got the survivor's guilt, you got all the other things, you're about to invade Iraq, and you just have to be like, I don't know what's going on here, and put it away, right? Put it away and move on. But I think that is something that a lot of the guys do is put it in a box, shove that box deep down inside, and then move on, because you got stuff to do, and it feels good to move forward.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that I was very young and immature, and if I had been a little older, maybe I would have dealt with them or addressed them. But I was like, when I got out, I got back from Desert Storm, and 2 weeks later I was out of the Marine Corps, and then 3 months later I was in college. So it was just like bang, 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 bang.
Jeez,
That's quick.
Yeah.
Dude, well, I mean, and it's easy, not easy, but like looking back in hindsight, it's like, man, well, I should have talked to someone, I should have done something. But like the lessons you learn along the way, right? Like that I think we all learn the hard way, especially when it comes to anything emotional or feelings based. I think it's easy to look back and be like, man, I should have done all these things. But like you were 21, 22 maybe by the time you started college,
21.
and then how do you go to college and explain any of that to anybody, especially when all we saw in the news. So like I was a kid during Desert Storm, right? But all we saw in the news was like, hey, we're going to war. People are worried. Hey, it's over. We won. We schwacked a whole bunch of people. We lost almost nobody. Moving on with America. Like it was such like a blip on the radar that it's like, yeah, okay, we got stealth bombers and they work. All right, moving forward. You know, you can't go to college and be like, no, but seriously, guys, some shitty stuff happened.
Let me tell you two things from my observations. Number one, you're right. I wasn't able to comprehend what I had gone through, nor was I had the opportunity to talk to anybody because this was 1991, and Desert Storm. You know, out 2 weeks later. There's no like mental health issues. There was no, taps. There was nothing back then. You know, I had deployed to Afghanistan 3 times, in Iraq 1 time in my career in the Navy, and each time I had post deployment briefs. I had availability to programs and individuals and counselors, which I believe are a good thing, but I think it's oversaturated now. I think it's if you have these resources available, you want to use them, use them. Don't force them down people's throats. I came back from my last deployment and they're like, "Oh no, you really need to go talk to somebody." I'm like, "No, I don't." I'm like, "You should see the other deployments. This is nothing." I was eating in the DFAC and I didn't get, lobster tail on Friday, and that's my trauma. Get the fuck out of here.
Bullshit.
So the
Dude,
the
you're
point
like,
is
I'm not a
this.
Marine anymore. Where's my lobster, guys? Where's
Yeah.
my lobster?
Oh my God, crab legs? Are you kidding me? Oh my God. You mean they don't have a movie at the tonight? We have to watch the. So the point being, I truly believe that people need to have the resources available, but don't cram it down your throat. Don't be like, you need to go talk to somebody. You have an issue. You have trauma. You have unresolved conflict. You have PTSD. You have this. I'm like, no, I'm just a dude.
Yeah.
Just a dude.
Well, I think that there's a couple things. There's a comparison thing, right? Because I remember I came back from my second rotation and my commander sent me to mental health. It was fine though, because like I was like, I don't want to go. You go over there and you're like, I don't like. I was told to come here. They're like, do you want to talk to us? I was like, no. They're like, then you can leave. I'm like, oh, deuces. Like I just got home. Like I got other things to do. But like I did the same thing. I was like, compared to my other rotation, like this is not a big deal. And I know other guys, but like the comparison thing is, I think one of the ways we cope with it. But I think you're absolutely right with if you try to shove it down someone's throat. Like first rotation, you come back and they were like, hey, you good? I'm like, I'm good. They're like, okay. Second rotation, it's like, you need to go talk to someone. And it feels so like, I don't want to talk to somebody right now. Like I just got home. Like I'm not even sure what happened yet. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how long it takes to process that, but I can't imagine being, you from your first rotation, it's like you went back to real life so fast. Like how long do you think it actually took you to process any of that stuff that happened?
I don't know if I ever processed it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you. Here's a story that will probably help you and help listeners understand when I say I don't know if I've ever processed it. So I'm doing my War Journal podcast, and now I have a buddy of mine, Brian, Michigan. Brian and I, we were in the Marine Corps together. He wasn't in Desert Storm with me because he was in Panama Operation Just Because and doing other stuff, and we remain friends. He gets married. He has kids. He's at my wedding. He has we're buds for 30 years, and I go through my divorce and custody battles, and he's doing the typical thing. Hey bud, you there? What do you? How can I help you? And, I'm there for his life events, and he comes on the. I'm like, hey, why don't you do a War Journal podcast with me? He's like, okay. He opens up on the War Journal podcast and talks about the things that he's going through, and he never talked to me about for 30 years. He's telling me how he's getting drunk and thinking about killing himself. He's telling me how he's not telling me, he's telling the podcast. And he's telling me how he would sit and watch a movie and be sitting with his wife and start crying uncontrollably, or be in his patrol car and think about something and just start bawling. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Why didn't you ever fucking tell me this? Why didn't you share this with me?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't. And then my other buddy, who's in the Navy, he retired, I retired, good friend of mine, Gary Lee. We reconnected about 5 months ago. And he tells me a story about how he was so depressed and angry, and when he retired, that he was thinking about killing himself. He actually took his 9mm. he had it in his mouth and he was going to pull the trigger. And then he started laughing. And if you know Gary and me in our relationship, we call each other Pig. And he started laughing because he kind of gagged on the gun. And he said to himself, "Well, I'll never be able to be gay. I'm not a homo." And then he started laughing, and then he's like, "Fuck this! I'm not going to kill myself." So for me, I understand it now more than I did then through the experiences of my friends and my own experiences. And like I said, this is why I want this to be a message to people. I'm not here to, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a mental health professional. But I'll tell you what, I'm a straight up dude who's like, unfuck yourself, pig, and let's figure this out. Move forward. When you're walking through hell, you don't stop. You keep walking. And that's
Yeah.
the only way I got out of it, and that's the only way a lot of these guys get out of it. So, and if the War Journal can, help you on that journey, good on you.
But I think that's why, yeah, okay, you put a disclaimer out. You're not a psychologist. You're not a mental health expert or whatever. And I'm a quotation expert, right? Um, but you've been at the bottom of that hole, right? You've gotten out, which I think is what is important. And I think, and I know that there's like a parable or whatever you would call it, where, you know, somebody's at the bottom of the hole, whether it's depression or whatever it is, it's suicidal. And, you have several people that come down and go like, "Hey, that sucks. Any way I can help you?" And yeah, I'm just trying to find a way out of this hole. Well, dude, I've never been down in that hole, so I don't know. I can't help you out. Whereas someone like you is able to go, "Dude, I'm going to get down in this hole with you because I've been here before and I know the way out. Come with me." And I think that probably serves you and has served you and others better uh, than just kind of going and seeing some therapy stuff and using these therapy words that everybody wants to use.
uh, I thank you. I appreciate that. But I'll just add one thing. You're never ever out. I mean, when you've been down there, you get out, but it's always there. I mean,
Mhm.
even Gary and I talk about it, and Brian and I talk about it, and when you've been down there and you've kind of clawed your way out, there's still a piece that's down there. It's always going to be there.
For sure. Yeah. And that kind of actually brings me to my next kind of question really is I've always had the kind of impression of, okay, so you get people that have done incredible things, right? They're ordinary people that get put in extraordinary situations. Your Rob Goodyears, your Dakota Meyer, your any of these Medal of Honor folks, Robichaud, that kind of those kind of people, right? And the military and organizations do seem to put them kind of on what I call like a hero tour, where they go to all these things and brief, brief, and they talk about it, and they almost have to relive it every single time for a good year or two post. I mean, even Rob Gutierrez is still traveling around, and his thing happened in like I think '07 or something like that.
Yep.
Same with Dakota Meyer. Now Dakota Meyer's back in the Marines. In all these people, they're still just reliving it. And I don't know. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it. But do you think that that's I know it's good for recruiting. I know it's good for getting people's stories out there. Like I get that aspect of it, but do you think it's actually good for the person, the individual?
All right, this is you opened up a can of worms, and for me, and this is why I'm gonna start this by saying that there are heroes, and some of them are Medal of Honor winners, and they have done some extraordinary things, and they were put in a situation and had to react to an event or whatever. Do I believe that they are better than anyone or they're heroes or should be celebrated? Not at all. I know women who, I'm just saying women, but I know a woman who watched her ex-husband blow his head off right in front of her in the living room, and she has to deal with that trauma every day. I know people who have gone through years of abuse, physical, psychological, emotional, and have come out on the other end. So the first thing I'll say is these people who are heroes, and some of their hero stories are not what they really are claim to be. So I'm like, okay, you did your thing, good on you. I don't think just because you wear a little medal with blue medal with white stars on it that you're better than anyone. Not like me, but anyone in general.
Right.
So being on the road show and having to do this, so I've seen where some of these people, it becomes their identity, and it all of a sudden they are like, I am a Medal of Honor hero winner, and I'm at an event. It was like about 6 months ago, and there was a Medal of Honor recipient there, and I just went up to him. I'm like, "Hey, dude. Hey, I'm Jim. Nice to meet you." I'm like, "So you won the Medal of Honor? Congratulations!" And he goes, "I was awarded the Medal of Honor." And I go, "Well, doesn't mean you don't have to be a douchebag." I'm like, "I was awarded the Medal of Honor." I'm like, "Okay." And this is what I go back to. That and a quarter will get you on the bus, but you better have a quarter.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's yeah, okay, we're
So
talking about
I don't know if I answered your question, but for me, every time I talk about the events in Desert Storm, I'm not reliving them. I'm communicating them to an audience that can hopefully learn. I'm not like, it's not this visceral, like when I'm talking to you, my arms aren't shaking again, and I'm not like, my blood
right.
pressure is 220/10, and I'm not reliving it. I'm talking to it.
Right. And so I think that there's some importance in that. One is conveying your story, conveying like connecting with people as well, because you are connecting with people that have experienced the same exact thing or similar things that are dealing with it. I guess so I guess there's probably good aspects of it, but then to counter that is what you're talking about, is then it just goes to people's heads. And I mean that's I can't speak for the Navy, but I know for the Air Force, we have these demonstration teams. The Air Force has the Thunderbirds, Navy has the Blue Angels. And they are, when they're traveling around to all these air shows or Super Bowls or whatever, like they are treated as celebrities, and everything. Absolutely, and everything is kind of handed to them, and they're on the road, almost every week, going to pretty awesome events, and it can go to their head, which is why they limit how long they're actually allowed to do that job, because if not, they run the risk of actually losing people up in their mind. They end up losing these good officers that are good pilots to just this kind of fame train that they're rolling on.
Yeah, it's funny. I would be in the Oceana O Club when I was at a SEAL team, and the Blue Angels would roll in, and they have their tailored flight suits that are
Yeah.
blue, and they're like, and all we wanted to do was kick the shit out of them. We're like, you arrogant douchebags. Yeah. So no, I get it. And this is what I see happening in social media, in like the podcast world. Everybody's trying to separate themselves and make a name for themselves. And like I said, there I was, and I'm not there. I'm like, this is Jim. This is who I am, and this is what I did. And it doesn't make me better. Doesn't make me special. It makes me Jim. And if Jim can help you, or if Jim's experiences can help you, that's a win.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I keep trying to get Jared to tell his war stories on here because we could have way more followers if we would just be those guys. Like I'm so disappointed all the time. I'm like, Jared, talk about vaporizing people. People love that stuff. They love it. Stop being humble. It's you're killing me.
Yeah, put some pictures up of some dead babies, and then you get all of a sudden you're like 200,000
Yeah.
views.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to ask though. So I think you and your friends, right? You were upset with your friends for not, or that one buddy for not telling you that stuff. But I think there's that goodness in, he knows that you're there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think you can overstate the importance of having friends that have been through similar situations as yourself just to talk to. And maybe he doesn't want to bring up like the worst things that he's thinking of at all times, but there's no way that you're not having a positive effect on that. And that made me think, like, instead of you going to college right away, like if you could have if you could have stayed in the Marine Corps a little bit longer and hung out in a team room with like a crusty, gunny or something that had been around for a long time, like how much better of a result do you think you would have had if you just had some time, with some of those folks that I think is their job to mentor and coach the younger folks through this change, right? Like everybody's going to be different on the other side of these experiences. And I think one of the ways that we lose that is, if the young guys don't have someone to talk to, they're like, am I broken? And be like, no, you're just different. I mean, you might be a little broken and we can put you back together, but like different after these experiences it's going to definitely be there. But you need that person to talk you through that and to be like, hey, you're never going to be the same again. And that's okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have that opportunity, so I can't really tell you. I remember when I was in Recon Battalion, I had a gunnery sergeant who was a former Army SF major, and he got out of the SF and he came into the Marine Corps as a gunnery sergeant. And you have to believe this shit. And because they were gonna send him off to like some supply or something, he's like, I'm getting out of the Army, and so he was awesome. He would just come into the chat room and start talking about Vietnam and what he did, and all of a sudden there'd be 40 guys in there just listening for 3 hours. And I learned so much about reconnaissance and mission planning and operations and life from him. I never wanted to upset him. I never wanted to piss him off, and I never wanted to just disappoint that guy. And if I had come back and he was there and we talked, maybe he would have helped me. But I think running into people like that in your life is awesome. Like, in having a mentor, he was just an incredible guy. And it's a funny story. He comes back from Vietnam and he's married, and his wife gets pregnant. And when he was in Vietnam, he was on extract, and they shot up his helo, and he got shot through the testicle, and so yeah, so he thought that he was sterile, and he gets the news that his wife's pregnant, and he's like ready to kill her. He's like, fucking cheat on me. And then he figures out, he gets tested, and he's like, oh, just because you only have one testicle, but you can still. That was a pretty funny guy. Anyway, he told us that story. We were dying laughing.
He wasn't a medic, that's for sure. Yeah. It's just, like I think there's a positive side to everything, right? Like I'm a hyper positive person, most of the time, except for when Jared won't do what I want him to do. But it's like there's a lot of goodness that can come out of this, right? Out of this trauma. And I think we tend to, when you get out, and I think you're talking about this a little bit, like there tends to be the whole, like you have PTSD and you're broken. There's a lot of people that need help. But at a certain point, like when do you take these people and say, hey, like it sucked, but you're not like a broken person that can never recover? Like how do you help the folks that you talk to make that transition into building off the things that they've been through to move on with their lives?
Me personally, I don't know if I'm helping anybody. I just tell them, how I did what I did and what worked for me. I'm going to tell you that I think the thing that many people experience, and this is the thing that puts them on this downward spiral. So I'm going through, this really dark period, divorce, custody issues, and you have all of a sudden you have everybody like in your face, lawyers, doctors, therapists, this and that. Everybody's pulling you apart. What about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? And all of a sudden you start doubting yourself and questioning yourself and listening to the voices. And that is the worst possible thing you can do. In my life, I have never questioned anything. I've never questioned myself. I'm not arrogant. I am just, I know that I know who I am. And people don't like me because I am very confident. And like, I'll walk into a room and be like, oh, that's bullshit. Fuck that. Da, 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 da. And they're like, dickhead. And I'm like, okay, but I was right. And they're like, yeah. So the point is, I have this confidence, and then I refined it as a businessman and author. I'm not a total like jackass walks in like F everything. But people will see that, and they're either connected to it or they're repulsed or by it. Like because they're either, either afraid or jealous or envious or threatened. And then all of a sudden I started doubting myself, and I started listening to the voices, and and that just was like a momentum, and it started, growing and growing. And all of a sudden now everything, you're questioning yourself, your identity, your beliefs, you're questioning your behavior. Did I do this wrong? And did I do this wrong? And that puts you in the wrong frame. And that's my biggest thing I've learned is be bold, be confident in yourself, not arrogant to the point where you're always right. You'll make mistakes, but trust yourself, trust your gut, trust your intuition, trust your knowledge and experiences, because there's something that they're very powerful. And once you start doubting yourself, man, you just went down the wrong path.
Yeah. Do you hear that a lot where guys, like, I mean, I know personally at a certain point I started listening to doctors, which was the worst idea ever, is to start listening to doctors about your experience and things that you should do to quote unquote get better, which really is just that they're just trying to maintain you from going any worse, which it doesn't work. But do you run into that a lot where people just like they're okay, and then there's like that time when they just start listening to other people and then it just goes downhill?
Yeah, I've seen it. And what I do is, what I've told them is, I'm like, and just tell me like what you think. When somebody tells you, "Hey, bro, you got this," that means the world. And especially if it's like a girlfriend or a wife, "Hey, Jim, I dated this girl for a while and she was awesome." She would say, "Jim, you got this. You're resilient. You're unbreakable." And that gives you like all this energy. You're like, "Yeah, right." But the minute you start hearing negative stuff from people, like, "Have you done it?" You're like, "Whoa." So I like when you said, be positive and stay positive, and that's all I try and do, is be a positive influence in people's lives. And hey, like, "Hey, Gary, you got this, bud."
Yeah, it makes all the difference. And you know, I'm a huge PMA, positive mental attitude kind of person, and I think that no matter, even when you're going through some wild stuff, and sure, maybe you can say it's a coping mechanism that I just laugh and smile all the time when things suck, but you know what? It works for me, and it works for the people that are around me too, because then they look over in the suck and they're like, oh well, you know, you can find,
If that little midget is happy,
yeah.
then what's going on? It can't be that bad.
Hey, how many times have you been on deployment and like this shit is terrible and you're miserable and it's cold and raining and everything's fucked up, and then something happens and everybody just starts laughing, and all of a sudden, that's kind of it. The power of that positive, you know mental attitude, and all of a sudden, it's not that bad. you know
It makes a huge difference. It happens all the time. It's just like, you know, um, some of the funnier things are, you're in a firefight and then you see somebody running across the street and they fall, they trip over nothing. And you're just like, I can't believe that just like, dude, it's hilarious. Or you're walking on doing an offset, in pitch black, and all of a sudden somebody doesn't see the barbed wire fence, or they disappear because they fall into a trench. It's just it's funny stuff, and it's not always the best situation, but it's finding the silver lining or the funny side of it, just to help you kind of like, all right, well, things aren't that serious.
yeah. I mean, I wish I could have a positive mental outlook on life every day, but I'm human and I don't. But I go through my ups and downs and I struggle with things, but having vision to know that I'm going to be happy, I'm going to achieve this, I'm going to do that, and having not only the vision but executing on it, and and doing things and being proactive. I mean, that works for me. That's my thing, man. If I get up and I have nothing to do that day and I'm like, shit, man, I got nothing to do, I'll find 10 things to do that are positive,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, then I go back and go, yeah, you know what, I did this, I did this, I did this. And one of the things for me, work out. I'm not that muscle head dude who's like, "Mm, I'm going to take my creatine and go do CrossFit for life." I'm like, because
Easy on creatine. Come on.
yeah,
Come on.
most of the guys that were in the teams, or we're like CrossFit or die. And I'm like, okay, loser, but just going to work out every day, having the discipline and go to work out. Whether, for me, I still play rugby. I'm 56 years old and I play rugby against the young kids. So, but yeah, that's another thing is just doing something, work out, be positive, move forward,
Well, you get a lot of that aggression out by hitting people on the rugby pitch. So,
Oh yeah.
so what's next for you then?
I have no idea.
That's a
I love
perfectly
that so
fine
much.
answer.
Yeah, I have. I'll tell you, like I've got like 50 things going on, and I'm just waiting for which one to happen first. So number one, I have my own company, Anoto Global, and it's like the coolest company in the world. We're like a risk advisory firm that does social listening. So we listen to what's happening in society, and then we help companies understand how that impacts their operations and business. And I had a stroke on Veterans Day 2 years ago. I played a rugby game, had a head injury, not injury. I had like I had head to head, and anyway, and I go out to dinner with my girlfriend that night, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just thirsty. I needed water. I'm dehydrated." And I go to drink out of the straw, and like the water goes everywhere. And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Are you okay?" And I can feel like the left side of my face going like that. I'm
Like,
like,
oh
"Holy shit!"
no.
She's like, "You're having a stroke. Let's go." She drives me to the hospital, and
He's like, "You're having a stroke. I'm just
yeah, I'm
thirsty."
like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm like, literally, she's like, we're in the car. She's driving, and she's like, "Are you okay? Stay awake. Don't fall asleep." I'm like, "I'm fine. I'm fine." So I go to get out of the car, and she's standing there, and the left side is just gone. Boom, fall down, and I'm like, and that was when I'm like, I guess I'm not fine. So
All
she's
right,
picking me
fine.
up. Yeah,
I admit it.
okay, there might be something wrong.
A little bit.
Because you're
I'm like, there might be something wrong with me, I think. I'm like, what? Nothing. Anyway, they go in and do a CT. But the funniest part is this we had been dating for a while, and fell down, can't stand up, and she's like, "I love you," And I'm like, "Oh," so, and I use it against her. I'm like, "Oh, so I had to have a stroke for you to tell me you love me?"
yes.
So anyway, do the CT scan, and they give me the medicine. And it was like kind of scary for me. Like they're like, "Squeeze my hand," and I'm like, "I am," and they're like, "No, you're not moving your fingers." I'm like, "I'm trying," and anyway, so I had the stroke, and it took me away from my business, and I had to like, I couldn't really do anything, and I had to go through rehab, and anyway, so I'm growing the company again. But that's one. Number two, I'm in dialogue with the Marine Corps Entertainment, and they have taken the War Journal and this manuscript, and they're considering making it into either a miniseries or a full
No
length feature
way. That's
film.
awesome.
Yeah, and so if you think the War Journal is cool, the miniseries is 10 times better. It's 2 full seasons, and I've written out like seasons 3 and 4, and they are some of the funniest stories of my time on active duty, and some of the most tragic, including like what happened in Desert Storm. And so I'm doing that, and then I'm actively pursuing to become the next ambassador to Iraq or the next charge d'affaires for Afghanistan. So, in my career in the military, I did 3 tours in Afghanistan. I know how to speak Dari. I worked for President Karzai as his military liaison. I've traveled throughout the country, and the current charge d'affaires is retiring this month.
Hmm.
And there's a huge opportunity to start negotiating with the Taliban, create a coalition government, and really help the people of Afghanistan. And that is really near and dear to my heart, um, because what I've seen from the current charge d'affaires in the U.S. State Department representatives have done a terrible job. And I truly believe in my heart that I can help the United States American foreign policy vis-a-vis Afghanistan, and I can also help deliver Afghanistan from where they're at now into the future.
Yeah, I mean, it, it's an important job without a doubt. And it's I think anybody would call me a liar if I said the last couple of years, the way that Afghanistan has been handled, and before that in reality, but especially the last couple of years, the way the U.S. foreign policy towards Afghanistan has not been ideal or not great.
It's
At least,
non-existent. Yeah, it's non-existent.
yeah, and I guess my kind of, to put you on a spot here, is like, what is kind of one thing that you would like to get after should you end up, you know, um, I guess being selected, because you have to be hired for it, right?
Well, that's the problem right now is
Okay.
the new administration is very opaque, and it's almost like a pay to play thing. I donate, 750,000 or $10 million and I become the ambassador wherever. But what's happening with Marco Rubio and 4 different positions and all the cutbacks at State Department, nobody really knows what's going on, and nobody's really, the traditional hiring channels are not being kind of utilized,
Mm,
nor are typical. It's like a State Department career diplomat who gets appointed there, and somebody like me is kind of a dark horse. But everybody who looks at my portfolio is like, this guy needs to be the next, charge day affairs. So it's kind of a weird thing about how I'm trying to do this, and for me, it's frustrating because everybody, including my former colleagues who I worked with in Afghanistan, who are like the current Afghan ambassador to the Ukraine, the current Afghan ambassador to Germany, and people like Zalmay Khalilzad, who was the former U.S. ambassador to Afghanistan, are all advocating for me, but it's not resonating with the new administration, because it could be just one person who's very tight with Trump calls him up and goes, "You need to put Jim Sisco at that position." Next day it happens.
mm.
So that's what I'm waiting on. Um, I have a couple people who are very well connected and they're advocating on my behalf, but I don't know how that's going to happen. But I can tell you, if I become the charge days affairs for Afghanistan, I have already created a strategy to move forward based on 3 kind of pillars, and it's education, economic development, and governance. And very simple, very like Doge like, not some big, uh, you know, typical government structures where you have 15 ministries and you have hundreds of technocrats. It's going to be very business oriented, straightforward. Here's your 3 pillars. This is how we're going to grow the company from a third world country to a second world country to a first world country. And then here's how it's going to take 30 years.
Mm.
Not like USAID or State Department coming in. Oh, we're going to transform this and we're going to give women's rights and we're going to have everything and we're going to do it in 10 months. No, you're not. Have a realistic time frame, have a realistic strategy, and execute on the strategy. And that's what I want to deliver.
Yeah, I I mean, it's without a doubt, it is an extremely difficult problem to solve. And we haven't done the best job of it, and
Understatement.
freak.
We all have a little bit of an emotional attachment to that place too.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing where people are like, "Oh, do you like?" Civvies are like, "Do you hate Afghans?" It's like, no, like I love Afghans, but also, I mean, but we were fighting with a bunch of them at the same time. It's hard to explain to people that like we lived there for years of our lives, and it's a lot more complicated than just like we're going to kill Taliban folk.
Yeah. And, God, I mean, we could talk about Afghanistan for hours. I know I can. I can tell you stories. We could sit here for like 5 hours telling stories about Afghanistan. But I will tell you that Afghan people are the most resilient people I've ever met in my life.
Mm,
And they live in abject poverty, and there's happiness. And if you know Afghan culture the way I do, because I speak Dari and I lived with Afghans, their way of life is just so amazing. They have Badal and Malamista, revenge and hospitality. And as you know, they're the most hospitable people in the world. They have nothing and they'll give you everything.
mhm,
Come
Mhm.
here, eat, but the minute you cross them, they'll kill you and they'll kill the rest of your family for the rest of your life. Badal, revenge. And you have to understand that. They will fight to the death fiercely. If you even, you know, if you just insult them or their pride, or you do something that's culturally insensitive, and Americans didn't realize that.
Yeah.
And so for me to go over with a Western dogma or Western ideology that I'm gonna all of a sudden, teach women and give them rights, and I'm like, dude, you have no clue what you're doing.
Dude, we have to have you back on to just do a deep dive into Afghanistan and what Afghanistan actually is versus what the lines on the map say it is. You know what I mean? I do have one more question, Jim, before we wrap up, because I've been wondering this for a while, and I could have looked it up in your bio and I didn't. Where are you from originally? Because it seems like that shapes a fair bit of your personality and the way that you are
Oh
with
my
everything.
goodness. Do I have to answer it honestly?
Please. I mean, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell us you're from what?
Worcester, Maine. No,
Yeah.
I'm from New Jersey.
Yeah,
I'm a
see, that
Jersey
tracks.
guy.
I was
So-
going to say
Grew
Jersey.
up on the Jersey Shore, putting baby oil on when I was lifeguarding in Seaside, and going to watch Bruce Springsteen at the Stone Pony. And yeah, I'm a Jersey guy. Sorry.
No, it makes sense. About halfway through, I was just like, I have to know where he's from originally, because But
That's awesome. Well,
But I was going to say, I would love to come back on and talk about Afghanistan. I have some just stories for you, and I will bring pictures, and some of this stuff right here is Afghanistan. I have this is a Lapis jewelry box from President Karzai. He gave that to me. I have
nice.
rugs, but I will tell you stories about the Taliban. I did reintegration missions, working with riding President Karzai's horse. I mean, hilarious stories. I'd love to come back on, and I think it'd be really entertaining for your audience, but also enlightening to understand Afghanistan more than what they just get from either the news or articles or headlines, because it is it's an amazing country and culture and the people, and I'd love to do it. Anyway, sorry.
Absolutely.
No, you're right. I was actually going to ping you and just go like, hey, where can people find you if they wanna look you up or want to connect with you?
Come on by my house. Here's my address. No.
Hey, my address and my phone number, my
I
social
don't
security
mind.
number while I'm at it.
Literally. So I'm not like that guy who's got his own website and advertising me as an author and a businessman and a diplomat. I'm not. I've never been good at being outgoing in that way. But check out my company website, anotoglobal.com, and anoto means to solve or elucidate, or because my bio's on there, or go to the Amazon and you can see the War Journal book, and it has some information about me on there too.
Yeah, absolutely. And also don't forget to plug the podcast, because you have a YouTube channel, the War Journal, or it's at the War Journal 1991. And I'm assuming you're probably dropping audio only on Apple Podcast and Spotify as well.
Literally, I am so inept. All I do is put them out on YouTube, and
Hey, that
everybody's
works.
like, they're like, dude, you need to be on this and do this and do this and do this. And I'm like, I don't know how, and I don't have time. I'm trying to get a motion picture done with Marine Corps Entertainment. I'm trying to be the Charge Day Affairs. I'm trying to run a company. I'm doing an analysis right now. I don't know if you saw this. It's really funny. President Trump came out and he tasked the intelligence community to give him an analysis on Greenland, right? I don't know if you saw the article, but he's all Greenland. So now the intelligence community, if you guys worked with the intelligence community, the intelligence
Mhm.
community is just fucked up. So they're
Oh
going
yeah.
to have to go out there and be like, oh my God, we don't have any sources in Greenland. We don't have to do this. We're going to have to go do collection on Greenland, and it'll take them 6 months to get anything. So my company is actually building a social listening report, and we're going to deliver it to the intelligence community next week. And it basically answers the mail, because that's what my company does. We look at what's happening in societies. We understand the identity of people. We understand that through their narratives and how it influences their behavior. And then what we're able to do is provide analysis. So we're going to provide, my goal is to put a report on Trump's desk, if I can get it there, in the next week and be like, look, your whole intelligence community is out there spinning their wheels, and here's your report. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Exactly. You're welcome.
Send me to Afghanistan, please.
Yes.
Yeah. And oh, by the way, can I become the charge day affairs of Afghanistan? They're like, and my friends are like, dude, go to Baghdad. It's awesome. It's cosmopolitan. I'm like, nope. I want to go to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, James, really appreciated everything that you did when you were in the Marines and everything that you're doing now. You are the true definition of having your hands in absolutely everything. So definitely appreciate you one writing the war journal and then also coming on and sharing your story. So everybody else out there, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Visit us over on onesready.com. Get yourself a piece of merch, and we're out here. Later.
Thanks, guys. Loved it.